We're Ashley and Ivan. For the last 10 years, we've worked as a husband and wife team in nonprofit and business.
We know both the joy and the tension that comes from working with your spouse. That's why we're so passionate about helping other Christian couples who lead and work together to turn tension into teamwork, communicate clearly, and lead as one.
Let's go on this journey together.
Welcome to the Life Duo podcast. My name is Ivan, and today we're talking about decision-making that brings clarity and not tension. Because the truth is, life is full of decisions, and it's so important as a couple to have a decision-making framework that helps you find clarity fast, but also avoid unnecessary fights.
And we believe that this is a skill set that you can develop individually, but also as a couple, how to discern God's will together so that you can find clarity and walk in confidence. And some decisions are fun and some are weighty. Some requires time, such as new jobs, moving, ones that require finances and directions of life, what to say yes to and what to say no to. And all that can build pressure to get it right.
Definitely. And man, that pressure, it takes its toll on us. Sometimes we get into the overanalyze mode where we're trying to figure out every detail of the best answer and how to move forward. Other times it's too much and we just disengage. So it's like, man, I don't even know how to move forward. The reality of it is that decision-making, it can affect us, not only the next step of what we step into, but also our connection and our relationship with one another.
And I think that pressure to get it right, it really reveals something deeper within our hearts, more than the decision itself. It exposes fear, control, our motives, and how we are trying to carry everything on our own.
Yeah. And so today we want to start off by just sharing a truth that has completely changed how we make our decisions. And it's this: how you make your decisions is just as important as the decision you make. Because really, clarity doesn't come from just finding the perfect answer or the right answer. It really comes from aligning with God and what He's doing, and also aligning with one another so that you can take that next step confidently with each other.
So how did we figure this all out? Honestly, the hard way. You know, for years, we wanted to be so faith-filled and obedient to God. And so our old way of thinking was just tell us what to do and we will do it.
Right.
We prayed, we waited, and we saw Him as a master. More than a father or a friend or even someone that we love and we get to enjoy. And we ask God the same question, maybe in a different way, try to squeeze His arm to tell us sooner than later and trying to figure out the way for us.
Yeah, and it was really frustrating for us because it felt like we weren't getting any answers from God. And you just start to think like, God, are you withholding something from us? Like, are we doing something wrong? I mean, it goes even deeper. Like, did we make a mistake? Are we like backsliding in some ways? Or, did we miss you? It just caused a lot of confusion on our end, and we really weren't too sure how to move forward.
And here's the thing, the longer that we didn't get clarity, more frustrated and the pressure that we felt to get it right. I mean, you start analyzing like, are you sure that was a closed door? Like, did we hear God incorrectly? Or every thought, every feeling, like we're trying to put it under the microscope and trying to figure things out. And before we knew it, our desire to obey God became lesser and lesser. And we so focused on getting the answers and answers right.
Yeah, I think it moved from like, God, we want to obey you, to like fear of, God, are we going to miss it? Are we going to miss you? Yeah, our hearts were genuine. We loved God. We wanted to follow and obey Him. But that shift was subtle. And really, to sum it up, was we became more dependent on finding an answer than being more dependent on God.
And here's what we've eventually learned, that God isn't withholding answers to punish us, even though it felt like that. Rather, He's inviting us to deeper trust, so that we get to know Him, we get to know His character, know ourselves, and that we are in it together with Him, that He's carrying us through the process.
Yeah, this was our light bulb moment that we began to find the new way for our decision-making process that completely changed how we find clarity and how we move forward with God and with each other. And so let's talk about what is that new way. So the new way starts with what we call the 80-20 rule. What we mean by that is that God is 80% more focused on who you're becoming, your character formation, what's going on internally, and 20% focused on giving us answers for what's next. But the reality of it is usually we get that flipped. We are 80%, maybe even 90% focused on finding answers with God. God, just tell us what to do. We want to be faithful. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's out of a genuine heart. And maybe we're like 10 to 20% focused on the things that are going on inside, that God is surfacing the fears, the anxiousness, those things that he wants to address.
But when you focus on what God is doing inside of you, it really does free you from fear, anxiety, unclear motives, insecurities, mistrust issues, and getting answers become more clear and more focused. And that's why how you make decision is even more important than getting the answers itself. I kind of think of it like this. Imagine this is the way that I look at God and look at the world and have all these things, fears, insecurities, mistrust, and different issues. If I'm trying to look at God and hear God through this lens, I'm not going to see it clearly. But when God is doing things in me, he's going to reveal things and he would remove all of these things that is in my heart, that I can see finally, clearly what God is trying to accomplish or trying to do through this decision-making process.
And so what's really, really important here is that we recognize this doesn't happen fast. It takes time to let God into those places. It takes trust to let him into those places. And you know, the truth is if we make a decision based out of fear or pressure or anxiety, man, our outcome is going to reflect that. How many times in our lives, maybe in your life, that you've just made a fast decision because you want that relief of not being in limbo or in between anymore? Or maybe it's so overwhelming emotionally that it's like, okay, I just need to move forward regardless. But then we end up reaping what we've sown, right? That quick decision, kind of maybe knee-jerk response, it ends up hurting us more than actually helping us. And it's so important to recognize this process of letting God in, letting him form us does take time.
I liken it to maybe building something from scratch. We just bought an IKEA dresser and I'm making it. And I usually don't like to read instructions because I just want to get to it and make it. And perhaps I made it without really taking the thought into how I'm going to do this. And I made it. It looks good. I've set it there and I start using it and I start finding like screws that I maybe have missed it somewhere. It started to become wobbly. And man, I shouldn't have bypassed the process or cut it short.
Yeah, it's true. And so you end up probably have to remaking the dresser anyway. So it's important to slow down and take the time to let God in. And that's how really we found that making confident decisions with one another starts, is moving from this old way of thinking of God, just tell me what to do, to this new way of recognizing, God, what are you doing in me? What are you doing in us through this decision? And how does that better inform our next step? And we just want to take a moment to share a real life experience of this last year, of how we've used this decision-making grid. So earlier this year, we had one of the biggest decisions we had to make as a couple in our marriage, and that was whether or not to leave California and move to Colorado.
And I think logically it didn't make sense. You know, finances, timing, it was January, we're leaving family, community, church we loved, and relationally, financially, it was just a lot.
It was, yeah. And I mean, again, that old way of thinking was still there, definitely, of like, God, we want answers fast. We need answers fast. We felt like there's kind of a deadline crunch that we needed to make some decisions by. But also we recognized, okay, there's actually the new way. And God, what are you doing in us through this process? We took some time to slow down and really process and listen to God to figure out, okay, what is going on in both of our hearts and how can we bring that to God and with one another?
And no one likes that limbo, right? And so we knew our tendencies, that we wanted to get answers quickly. That probably means that we needed to slow down. And so when we slowed down, God exposed a couple things. Number one was that I had a hard time trusting God. God, will you really provide a space for us that is nice and that's where we can find rest and hope and rebuilding this relationship again? But also financially, it makes sense that it's at a reasonable price. And number two, he revealed that we spent half of our marriage at someone else's home. We knew that we desperately needed a place to find rest and to rebuild us again. And so that was surfaced as we slowed down.
Yeah, and once we had that new understanding of, oh wow, this next space should be a place that facilitates what God is doing in us, it took us a layer deeper and brought us to another layer of questions where we began to see, okay, what area, what city, what place will actually best facilitate what we recognize God is doing in us with healing, new vision, and a time and place for ourselves. And then from there, okay, God, from what are some practical steps we can move forward in that way? What doors are open before us? And we saw how that 80-20 rule was being applied, that, okay, we are focusing on the 80%, but there's also the 20% of the practicalities of landing where we are. And so from there, we were able to make a really clear and confident decision to move. And that's where we are today. And again, we see God's faithfulness, that he knew exactly what we needed, even before we really knew or fully understood what we needed for ourselves.
Yeah, so if you're facing a big decision, ask yourself these 3 questions. Number 1, what are you surfacing in me? Fear, pressure, control. Perhaps you do really trust God. Everything is really good with you and the Lord. That's amazing. Number 2, what might God be forming in me and in us through this decision-making process? And lastly, Lord, tell me what I need to know right now. Rather than tell me the answers, like, what do I need to know about this decision-making process? And these questions will help you get a clear picture of how to even pray together individually, and he will show you what might be next.
Yeah, and so when you adopt this 80-20 rule in your life, in your marriage, in your decision-making, it actually shows us that every opportunity in the big decisions, and even the small ones, is an opportunity to become more like Jesus.
Yes, and it is here in our dependency that God meets us. God is amazing like that. He can work in 2 different areas all at the same time. One, who you are becoming, but also what he's calling us to do. He cares for both of that. So any major decisions that you may be facing, God is definitely using that as one of the intentional tools, not to pressure you, but to develop you, to make you become more and more like him. So then it can deepen your trust in him so that you get to know him. You get to sharpen your hearing with God, building trust with one another.
Yeah, it's actually amazing when you begin to slow down and let God in, because it really deepens your closeness, your nearness, and your intimacy with him. That as we vulnerably come before God and offer these things, I'm afraid of this. God, I'm anxious about this. God, I'm worried that this is how things are going to shake out. And in that place, he meets us with his kind grace and truth. It builds that deeper connection with him. And that's what he's after. And the truth is that as you take a big step into a new place, you'll have that confidence of knowing, I've done this heart work, so to speak, with God. I know stepping into this new thing, even though maybe it's still a little scary, I know that God's with me because I've seen him in our decision-making process.
Yeah, so I think when you understand this, you stop panicking about getting it right. And you realize that, wow, God is really invested in our lives. We're not doing this alone, that he is walking us through, that he cares about what we do, but he cares more about what's in us.
So remember, that truth we shared right at the beginning was how you make your decision, the 80-20 rule, is just as important as the decision you make.
So with that, if you want to go deeper in decision-making process and you really want to do it well and do it right, this is what actually led us to create this resource for you guys. And it's called Hearing God Together, How to Make Faith-Filled Decision, even if you two hear 2 different things. This will help you and walk you through step by step how to hear God individually, but as a couple together to make decisions with confidence and clarity.
Yeah, we've created it in such a way that it's more of a facilitated process for you, that we kind of lead you step by step. And we've put some really important concepts and principles in there. One is what we call the puzzle piece key, in that sometimes when we hear different things in prayer, that it's more about how do they fit with one another versus hearing the exact same thing. And we unpack that even more for you in there. We talk about that how you listen is just as important as getting an answer, kind of similar to what we talked about today. And then also that deep down, God's building trust in the midst of this process. And what I love is we unpack 4 heart postures that help us really hear clearly from God. And so this is something we're very proud of. And we think if you're still wanting to go a next level deeper in this decision-making process, it's going to be a great fit for you.
And maybe you haven't had a time or chance to pray together to make a decision. Maybe so far you've made decisions logically. But now you really want to be faith-filled. You want to be obedient, hear God, and really do it together. Because I wish we had one of these. Please download the guide because, we all face decisions every single day, small or major. And so I think this will be so beneficial.
Yeah, definitely. And so if that's something you're interested in, there's a link down below where you can get our free guide for you. Remember that key of how you make decisions is just as important as the decision itself. And when we do that, we're able to find clarity and really reduce tension and fighting, unnecessary fights in our marriage, which is what we all want, right? So if you've liked this content and this episode, make sure to subscribe if you're not already. Perhaps share it with another couple that could be in a big decision-making process to help them along. And we're just so grateful to be on this journey with you. And we'll see you in the next episode.